Welcome back to On the Subject. I'm here with an incredible guest today, someone who's so passionate about education, has dedicated her entire investing career to helping incredible education companies impact hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students around the world. Emily Bennett. Emily is a principal at OWL, and we're so excited to have her here. She not only has been at OWL investing in education companies, she spent time at Spotify, Facebook, and graduated from Harvard Business School, arguably the best business school in the entire world. We're so excited to have Emily today and learn more about her educational journey. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start from the beginning? I would just love to learn more about, what was your high school experience like? What were you like in high school? What did school mean to you at that age as you really built yourself up and become an incredible professional you are today?
Yeah, I love that you started with high school.
Yeah.
Those are the most impressionable years in terms of my education. Likely, it's where I really built my educational identity, my sense of what I was good at and what I needed to improve at. What I was like in high school, I was very type A. Is that as a fact? I cared a lot about performance and grades. But I've always been a very curious learner. Somebody that actually wanted to do the reading because I wanted to understand the hidden context. And that was the through line in high school. For me in high school, I actually thought at that point that I wanted to be a writer. I grew up doing a lot of creative writing, both poetry and long form. And I developed a really deep relationship with one of my teachers at that point, an English teacher who ended up being the reason that I went to Middlebury College with interest in breadloaf and got to do just a lot of writing on the side. So my high school was really anchored around that, around the founding of a real passion and a teacher that aligned with that, and that really pushed me forward.
So I would love to be able to discuss, you ended up working in product and you're so passionate about writing. And one of our previous guests, someone you work with, Tori Patterson, he talked about the same thing, how the power of writing. Can you elaborate more why the liberal arts education can be so powerful for technology, investing, the career that so many put pressure on to, hey, you need to get a STEM education, but yet the liberal arts and the writing components of our educational system largely get neglected, yet it develops such a powerful skill set.
Teaches you how to think and communicate, and that's the pillar of business. That's the pillar of the way we make decisions. Writing at its core, there's different arms of writing. There's both analysis and interpretation. And that's a huge component of if you're operating in the business world, in a product world, how do I think about new markets? How do I make big decisions? It's all grounded in this central reasoning, which actually comes back to the way that we read and we digest information. And then there's communication, and communication can be written in form, it can be vocalized, but it's how do we persuade? How do we build connections? How do we get a narrative across? And that's, you think about launching a new product is the parallel there. Understanding the right way to frame a product, the right way to communicate to your audiences, and how do you speak to that audience, all of that is seated in writing.
So you're so articulate, and the way that you conceptualize ideas is absolutely incredible, and it's a pleasure to get to work with you and learn from you. Would you say a teacher, a coach, a professional colleague, who's been the most instrumental in developing your skill set, other than yourself, of course? Who have you looked to help make you a better person and professional?
It definitely started with teachers. And what's interesting for me, it was actually less my university teachers and more my middle school, my lower school, my high school teachers. I'm actually still in touch with one of my lower school writing teachers.
It's amazing.
The first person that looked at me and said, "You're good." You remember that person. Yeah. They end up being pretty impressionable. So definitely educators. And then in the workforce, I think it's important always to kind of seek mentors, to seek people that you want to learn from, that you want to emulate. And I found that in most pillars of my career. I found that in tech. There were certain individuals at Facebook, now Meta, that I would watch and just want to derive skills from. And so being able to kind of bring those people along the journey, have them coach me, have them really mold me into the type of worker that I am today. The same has been true at OWL. You just met Tori, but getting to kind of learn from people who have been just doing this for a long time and who have seen reps, and extending that into my own practice.
So when you think about education, you're someone who decided to go back after your career started to business school. And, that's something that's a very intentional decision. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money to be able to invest further in your educational journey, especially when you've already started making money at some incredible company. How did you go about deciding, I want to go back to business school? And how did you get into the best business school? Congratulations.
Thank you. It was not an easy decision, and I'd say it wasn't a linear choice. I never when I graduated from Middlebury, thought I'm going to be somebody that goes to business school. Actually, when I first graduated, I thought maybe I'd probably go to med school.
Yeah.
I had studied kind of psych and neuroscience, and so thought that was a natural parallel. But you happen into a career, and there's like a natural serendipity in the choices we make. So I had been in product. I was at product at Meta for a number of years. I was PM video at the New York Times, and then was at Spotify. So I had this really kind of direct track in product, and I knew that if I wanted to be a CPO or continue to scale in this function, I didn't need additional schooling, but I wanted it. And I wanted it because it goes back to I've always just been innately curious, and I wanted to explore what else was out there, and to better understand if the passion I felt around product strategy, I could feel more on an ecosystem level. And that's what venture really represents. It's product, you're predicting what's the next feature or the next product set that's going to influence consumer behavior. And investing, it's trying to find the next entrepreneurs who are building just that, getting ahead of trends. So I was inspired by that and made the choice that I did want to really consider that pivot. And to do that, I think business school is a really great way. There's several reasons to go to business school, but probably I'd say the most impactful one is if you really think you want to make a change and you're intentional about what that change is. So you can kind of approach business school quite methodically and ensure that you get out what you're seeking. I applied with that in mind. How did I get into Harvard Business School? I'm not the typical candidate that worked with an admissions consultant. I have about a week and a half application, and I threw together an old jury. But it worked. And I think why it worked is I told an authentic story, didn't feel like everyone else's story. And I really molded it to my experience working in news and misinformation, my passion for literacy. And I talked in that essay about education and about thinking that there was real room for innovation. Luckily, they took a chance on me, and here I am now.
Luckily for them, too, you're an incredible alum, and it's so exciting to see what you're doing for the world. And there's two pieces I want to dive into specifically about Harvard Business School. So first, those of you that don't know, it's an incredibly engaging environment where they use the case method. This is something that is not happening at majority of high schools or graduate schools or undergraduate schools. Talk about that. What was that like? And you have to come to class prepared, or you can get embarrassed by getting called on and not being able to walk through it. Or
It's the cold call.
Yeah. So what was that like? And how much did that make you better?
The reality of student behavior, people need like incentives and accountability. That's what gets people to actually adhere to learning materials. And at the start of every HBS class, they always start with the cold call. And so no one knows if they're going to be the cold call. And obviously no one wants to look stupid. And so everyone does the reading. Yeah. And so you come to class versed and prepared. But the entire discussion is it's teacher facilitated versus instructed. And it's discussion led. So you're the class is having active debate, going back and forth, talking about the materials, and really sharing their perspective in front of a large room. I think it's good training for a lot of things. One, it's the sheer comfort with voicing your perspective in front of a group of people. That's business. That's
Absolutely.
sales. That's the power of influence. And the ability to really debate both sides of an argument. The beauty of business school as well, especially Harvard, is it's a very international kind of mixed group of people from tech, people from consulting, private equity, people from all parts of the world. And so you get that infusion of perspective into a single discussion, which ends up being really additive to the final product.
So, and the second piece I wanted to elaborate on, going to an incredible school, I'm sure you had plenty of options to be able to pursue a variety of careers. Sounds like you came in knowing you had a passion for venture, but you happened to choose the venture firm that focuses specifically on education. No other investments are allowed. Why are you passionate about education? What makes you, obviously your story's been incredible hearing about your high school and collegiate journey, but that was a very intentional decision. And we're so thankful to have someone with your intellectual horsepower focusing on this space. We thank you so much for your support. How did you navigate that?
I'll say I'm appreciative of people like you that are building in this space. It was very intentional. I think if you have to think about the moment of time when I decided to go to Al, COVID had just started. I initially interned at Al before joining full time after graduation. So this was 2020. I got the offer in spring of 2020, and the world was shifting beneath our feet. And I think what I saw in that moment was this period of just expediting need for better solutions. No one could learn in person. We saw like real adoption of digital solutions, which I correctly interpreted as lasting. Obviously, there was some kind of COVID volatility and bump, but there was a lasting kind of wave of adoption and assumption that like digital was part of the learning experience. And so that was really exciting to me, was to see that like momentum of change at that specific period of time. That and mass global appeal, where you think about the US and there's so many ways that we're behind, but we have investments and sit on a board of a company in Africa. We work with a number of companies in India. And there's in Latin America, I work with a company in Brazil. And there's so much replicability against markets, but also nuances where there's just like real room for innovation and change. I think we're at like an incredibly pivotal moment right now in the aftermath of COVID, where we're incurring and we're seeing the effects of these massive deficits. And so the need has definitely not gotten less. In fact, it's gotten stronger because we have a real responsibility to ensure that we just enable kids to catch up and all learn from the same place. And that's what we're really focused on right now.
So, two questions finish of your time. I know you're so busy, and this has been such a blast. Love getting to learn from you. You have such a great consumer tech background, Spotify, Meta, New York Times Digital. What would you like to see brought from those companies into education? What could education do better to reference, some of the incredible engagement that those products have that has not happened yet in education?
Better consumer experiences, meet learners where they are, meet learners how they like to engage with content. There's been a lot of generations of EdTech tools that have gone out just trying to port physical education online, and creating the same kind of experience and not thinking about the new ways that information is received in a digital medium. And what consumer tech has done very well is built with digital first in mind. So building strong mobile applications, building with social and gamification at the core, all of these things are really influential to consumer behavior. And so the same through line should definitively exist in EdTech. Create products that are easy to use, that capture people, create products that people feel incentivized to come back to. And if you do that, that's where real stickiness comes from.
And then, we always love doing reflection here. If you were to tell 14 or 15-year-old Emily one piece of advice to maximize her step along the way, what would you go back and be able to say, great job doing this, Emily? I'm really excited that you were able to dive into this passion and be so serious about your education.
Embrace serendipity and don't ever be prescriptive on your path. I think if 14-year-old Emily, there was no way 14-year-old Emily would have thought she'd been in venture capital. And I'm so happy I am, because I actually think it was the right path for me. But sometimes when I talk to college students or people that are younger who just have this assumed perspective around the future, like, be flexible. You might end up at the right place.
I love that. Flexibility. Let's all take that away. We could all be more flexible, and you never know what life-changing opportunities on your doorstep, and that very well could happen in the next few months. And we're so excited to be here with you today on the subject. Is so thankful to have Emily Bennett. It's such a pleasure to get to work with her on a frequent basis, and love your passion for the space. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you.